All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our school committee meeting on December 23rd at 8 a.m. I'm going to start off by saying that thank you for joining us. The purpose of today's meeting is to ensure that our school administration and coaching staff are in compliance with the middle school handbook, as well as the MIAA policies concerning middle school athletes' participation in sub-varsity sports. Please note that our goal is not to restrict middle school sports or prevent middle school students from participating in high school sports programs, but rather to ensure that all activities are aligned with the established policies and guidelines. We have been in discussion with the administration since the start of the season about this, following concerns raised after the first meeting regarding potential violations of these policies. We're here today because the administration maintains that their current practices do not constitute a violation. We're going to begin the meeting by taking attendance, after which we're going to open the floor for public comment. And each speaker will have 3 minutes to express their views. We kindly ask that during your remarks you refrain from naming specific students, staff, or parents. Additionally, please direct all comments to the chair. We encourage new relevant information and ask that speakers avoid reiterating points that have already been made to ensure that we can cover all perspectives efficiently. Thank you for your understanding at this time. All right, so I'm going to start off by attendance. I am here. Ms. Gibbons.
Here.
Ms. Kanashari.
Here.
Mr. Powers.
Here.
And Mr. Conroy is not here this morning. Superintendent Mullaney.
Here.
Also here. And is Terry's not joining us? The Director of Finance. Okay. We're also joined this morning by the Athletic Director, Mr. Finney.
Here.
And the track coach, Miss Marr. And I didn't know if Miss Fitzgerald was going to be joining us as well, so I put her on the list.
I'm here.
Good morning. Okay, and I just have to read one more little thing here that says the meeting is being recorded and can be viewed on Mondays on Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 37. All of our meeting videos are also posted on the Millis Public Schools website under School Committee. All videos are also available on YouTube. All school committee meeting minutes and agendas can be found on the school committee page of the Millis Public Schools websites. Again, people wishing to speak during our public comment session must be signed in. And we're going to go over that in a few seconds, how that works. Comments are not to exceed 3 minutes in time. Individuals may not name students, staff, or parents, and all topics for discussion must be limited to those items listed on the agenda. Comments must be directed to the chair. The committee may or may not respond to public comments. It shall be at their discretion to discuss the issues at a later date. And all the times for the videos are approximate. Okay, so the way that we're going to have public comment is on the bottom right of your screen. There is a little triangle, circle, square icon, and you can click on that and go up to the Q&A option. When you type on that, when you click on Q&A, you can type your name into the list, and this will tell us that you wish to speak. When your name comes up, we're going to let you in to our little screen here so we can see you, and you can turn your mic and video on. And then you have 3 minutes to speak, and then we will put you back into the viewing mode to bring the next person in. Does that make sense? Everybody on board with that? All right. And we have some helpers here to help us keep track of all that. So we have Miss Hurley, calling people in and out, and we have Mr. Nash, who will be our timekeeper and let you know when. All right. Do we have anyone signed in here for our questions? How do I track that?
So if you go to that activities.
Let's see it. All right. So we have Michael Genovese is our first speaker for public comment.
Okay.
Good? Everyone hear me?
Hey, yeah, we got you.
Excellent. So it's my understanding that we're here to talk about whether we're in compliance with the handbook and with the MIAA as it comes to athlete participation. And I just wanted to kind of shed a little bit of light from my understanding of how they views meets and how Millis also corresponds with those meets. So through the MIAA, they have championship level meets, which sometimes there's qualifications through their highest level of meet. My understanding, Millis has no middle school participation in that whatsoever. In addition to that, there are invitational meets that are high school only, varsity level only. Our middle school athletes do not participate that at all. In addition to that, there are league meets at a varsity level, which our athletes do not participate in at all. And then there are league meets, and there are meets where sub-varsity is allowed, which those athletes do not score in for the meet. They participate at the lowest possible level. If you viewed the MIA's way that they view meets, these are the lowest level meets possible for those athletes to participate in, is what they're participating in currently. As far as the handbook goes, we are in compliance with that as well. So MIA viewed in official meets, all the middle school athletes that are participating in the lowest level that is available.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? Again, if you want to speak, you're going to click on the little icon that's like all the shapes, the square and the triangle and the circle. Oh, Mr. Carter would like to speak. Again, while he's getting entering to the conversation here, the square, circle, triangle, when you click on that, you can click on the Q&A and then type your name in, and we will add you to our list of speakers if you wish to speak.
Hi, everyone.
Morning.
Am I ready to go?
Good to go whenever you're ready.
So obviously, Mike Carter, school librarian. I coached high school baseball for 12 years in Millis. I'm currently the president of Millis Youth Baseball. I just think that it's important to note, and I'm sure you're all aware of how the MIAA is already sort of stacking the deck against us, us being Millis and other schools. They're moving our sports teams up a division for the fall sports, and they're going to continue to do that for for winter sports and spring sports next year. I'm fearful that basically anything we can do as a district to support our high school sports is vital to not just the success of our players, but the safety of our players. And also it coincides with the vision of Millis schools being a small school, big family. I think that the middle school sharing the building is with the high school. It's important that we foster as much of that connection as we can. And if there's any ambiguity whatsoever in the MIAA's handbook, with the language of what we can and can't do, I think it's important that we take full advantage of that ambiguity and just allow as many students as possible to play our high school sports. I understand you guys are trying to do the right thing to make sure that we're in compliance. And I'm just saying, if there's ever an opportunity to take advantage of any kind of ambiguity, now's the time. So our high school sports need it, our players need it, and probably the future of our sports need it too. So thank you for giving me the time, and thank you guys for
Thank you. All right, next up, it looks like we have Mr. Benham.
Hi there.
Good morning.
I know we're not supposed to reiterate what people say, and I don't want to, but I just, echo Mr. Carter's sentiment and Mr. Genovese, and I just being the father of two, middle schoolers, it's been so great for them to be in these athletic programs and be able to compete, and it's been a huge confidence boost for them, and I would just hate to see that go away. And again, if there's any gray area with this policy, I think we should take advantage of it.
Thank you. All right, and then it looks like Chris Harlan. I don't know if I pronounced your last name right. Sorry.
Chris Erline, thank you. So I've had a daughter who's a sophomore, and I have a daughter that just graduated last year, and they've come up through the programs at various levels and various sports. And I can't emphasize enough. I know it's been said, and we're dancing around this, but the camaraderie and confidence, and being a participant as part of these teams has been just so great for their ability and confidence and competing, right? Learning how to compete at that middle school level and giving them something to do, especially coming out of COVID, has been incredible. And I think it's a strength. When you talk to other folks that are in other school districts that don't have the ability to do what we do because of middle school and high school being in the same building, people are jealous and want to be able to take advantage of what we're doing. When you talk about what's going on at the middle school level and the kids are sitting on the sidelines or, not involved, or I can't wait until they get in the high school, we're already in that. And again, to Mr. Carter's point, we should be exploiting that and taking advantage of it and not try to move it out or to the right here. So I fully support letting the middle schoolers participate as early as they can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I know I'm in here, so I don't know if I should put my name in or when I can have an opportunity to say a few things.
So after the public comment speaks, we're going to talk about it in here with the people that
Perfect.
have
Thank
more
you.
information. That's okay. Okay, Mr. Lohr wants to know if this is an emergency school meeting or a normal school meeting. So regularly scheduled meetings are on Tuesdays twice a month. When things come up that we need to discuss, we can post a meeting to have these conversations without that are in between our regular school committee meetings. So we're having this meeting to discuss this matter because the next school committee meeting isn't until January.
Chairperson Briggs.
Yeah.
I do want to clarify, this does not qualify as an emergency school meeting because it was posted with 48 hours of notice.
Mm-hmm.
This is this is an off-cycle school committee meeting that was posted by official rules with 48 hours of public notice. So never was it an emergency school meeting.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Miss Pamela Ahmad, you are next.
That would be me. Justin.
Okay, sorry, that's what the name says.
No problem. I've had two kids come up through Coach Marr's running program, and I think they've been middle schoolers, and it's been a wonderful opportunity for them. They both really enjoyed it, and I think a smaller school having children able to run in these meets and compete, it just adds a lot of richness to their life, and it would be a shame to see it being lost. So I'm very much supportive of what the last commenters would like to see the most middle schools continue. And thank you, Allison, as well. Great coach.
Thank you. All right, and then it looks like we have Jamie Scavone. I don't know if I pronounced your name right. I'm sorry. So again, if you would like to speak, we're gonna probably have like 5 more minutes of public comment. If you could click on the icon on the bottom right-hand corner, that's a triangle, circle, and a square, and that will bring you up to the Q&A option. Click on the Q&A option and put your name into that chat there, and then we will put you on the list to speak.
Hi, I'm assuming we're good.
You're good.
Jamie Scavone. We're not reiterating things. I do think that having middle schoolers compete is important. My middle schooler here who's competed on Coach Marr's team, and I have an older daughter who has also competed at the middle school and high school level as a middle schooler. I'd like to comment more to the policy that we have and talk about very quickly, if we're going to look at the ambiguity of the policy that was written for the middle school handbook, I'd like to ensure that we are looking at it in a way that's going to foster the continuation of middle school students participating. If there's anything that needs to be clarified, that we're maintaining that structure rather than getting rid of it. I'd also like to state that while this is about indoor track currently, this was also about cross country. This is also going to impact every single sport. This isn't just one sport. We're hearing from a lot of track and cross country parents right now. But I'd like to also say that soccer, basketball, football, all of the other sports, volleyball, all have middle schoolers competing, and it's something that's really important. And so as we're looking at what you guys are going to write as your policy, as you're looking at putting it in front of the advisory boards, as you're looking at the middle school handbook, let's make sure we can maintain that integrity of keeping our middle school athletes able to be involved, able to participate in a safe way, able to show school pride, develop these athletes in a safe way. The coaches are amazing at doing that, making sure that we are in compliance, making sure that they're competing, making sure that they're safe, they're enjoying it. I now have a runner who I never had before, who didn't want anything to do with it and is now. I'm touched. He was named most improved this season, and it just goes to show how much positive impact these sports and these coaches can have when they're dealing with our youngest athletes. And I'd hate to see this one instance, this one meeting, take any of that away. Instead, I'd implore you all to make sure that the policies that we're writing, the policies we're checking, are in fact protecting that right, protecting our ability as a small school to have as many athletes participate in as many sports as possible. That's it.
Thank you. So I just want to reiterate, we're not taking away middle school athletics. We're not taking away middle school sports. We're not taking away the ability for middle school students to participate at the sub-varsity level. That's not what we're here for. We're here to make sure that we are complying with the rule that says middle school students need to participate at the sub-varsity level. Okay, so we'll have two more comments. We have, it says Genovese, and then Mr. Lohr, and then we'll end our public comment. Okay, you're up.
Hi, I just wanted to comment that unfortunately, this is the second time in less than 2 months that my 8th grade daughter and her fellow middle school teammates have faced a challenge to their participation in their sport mid-season. Last month, on the week of one of the largest cross-country meets of the season to date, and what would be the final meet of the season for most of the team, a school board member approached the athletic director challenging the policy of displacement in the handbook, demanding that 8th grade varsity level athletes be disqualified from that race, in turn ending their season immediately. The girls' varsity team included 4 legally waivered 8th grade athletes who ran together all season long since August without question. The school board's rationale for school board members' rationale for questioning their participation in the race was that based on the times of the runners that season, it was likely that an 8th grade varsity runner may run faster than a high school varsity runner in that race, and by doing so, that 8th grader could advance to the state of the championships meet and potentially displace that high school varsity athlete from advancing. To clarify, all top 10 runners in that race advance to the next round, where you place is solely based on individual performance. When his request was denied by the athletic director, he went directly to the superintendent, who at that time, without full information, did grant his request, at that moment banning all 8th graders from finishing their season and running a race that they've trained for since August. This decision also disqualified our entire Millis team as a whole, now only allowing high school varsity runners to run as individuals, since they didn't have enough runners to make a team anymore. This decision was made on a Tuesday. The race was on Saturday. I'm sure it goes without saying, but the impact that this had on my 13-year-old daughter and her teammates was devastating. At this time, kids this age should feel included. This idea of excluding them or making them feel unwelcome to any specific event without any notice is completely unethical. The next day, after gaining more information about the situation, the superintendent did reverse his decision and he allowed the team to race. But what those kids went through that week was unnecessarily stressful, harmful, and divisive as a team. Yet, here we are again, mid-season, with my middle school status or what she may or may not be able to participate on the team being called into question again. I asked the school board to not allow for this type of continued practice for calling into question athlete participation in specific sporting events mid-season. I understand this conversation happened at the start of the season, but it's coming to us mid-season. I do appreciate all of your due diligence and everything that you do, and especially when looking into policy, but I would encourage that all policies be reviewed for all sports, and that any changes or questions to policies are done before registration even opens for athletes to participate in the sport. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Lohr is up next.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry, that was my mic. So I want to thank the previous contributor there. They answered a lot of my questions. Having a child on the team, my question is, what exactly are you, the school committee, voting on today? What is subject to interpretation with the MIAA rules, let alone the handbook? What is Millis violating? Cross country was just addressed. I had a question about that. And why are we here again? Was anything done beforehand in the fall to correct why we're here now? So this program, the track and field, has phenomenal coaches, amazing mentorship for kids, and a great cross culture for meeting other students in other towns. So I fully support the track and field. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, and our last speaker is Sydney O'Toole, and then we're going to end our public comment.
Hello, it's not Sydney.
Sorry, that's what it says on your screen.
I guess that's whose computer we're using. Millis Public Schools computer. Good morning. I'm PJ O'Toole, Sydney and Taylor's father. And I guess I've kind of been following along and hearing things from a distance here, but I just have a couple of questions. I think you tried to answer some of them, but it's a little concerning that this particular issue is a matter so urgent and important for you guys to be pulling together a meeting this week. I'm curious who raised this matter specifically and why. And I also want to know, like, it makes me think if the motives behind this being tabled are what they are, as a school committee, are we prioritizing the needs of the entire student body by spending our time on this matter? And are we advocating for changes for the benefit of one member of the school committee? These ethical and conflict of interest considerations really concern me as a community member, and I just have some questions related to those. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to end our public comment. It also looks like nobody's in the list anymore. So we're going to move on to the discussion of why we're here, and have some more clarifying questions answered from the school committee, from the superintendent and Coach Mar. Again, we are here because we are ensuring that we are in compliance with the handbook and the MIA policies on middle school athletes' participation in sub-varsity sports. It had come to our attention at the beginning of the season that there are middle schoolers participating in varsity athletics at the track. So we just are here to talk about that. And so I don't know, Mr. Mullaney, if you want to say anything now.
Sure. Yeah. I can, put a little perspective in, and then I'm sure Coach Ma can and Mr. Finney can provide more details, but just kind of a quick summary. So winter track is unique. And historically, middle school athletes have participated along high school athletes for a number of years. Although the middle school kids participate, they do not score, and their results are not factored into the final score of Millis High School contests against their opponents. And part of the reason why winter track is so unique is the way the meets are conducted. If you've ever had the opportunity to watch a meet at Reggie Lewis Center in Boston, it's definitely controlled chaos. Each league has a certain time slot at the venue, and each league runs all their races at the same time. So when, like, Millis, if Millis is competing against Dedham, and you look at a race, there's Millis, there's Dedham, there's Ashland, there's Medway, there's Westwood. All the kids run at the same time. So it's the whole point is to get this thing done quickly. So what they do is they'll run the race with all the participants from all the Tri-Valley League schools. Then they pick out, if Millis is playing Dedham, they'll pick out the results. They'll disaggregate the results and take the Millis kids and pit them against the Dedham kids. So, a Millis kid might come in fourth in the race, but against Dedham, they came in first. And so that's how it works. So to run things as quickly as possible, they run varsity and sub-varsity heats. Some of those races are limited to the number of participants by the number of lanes. So if it's 6 lanes for the 50 meters, they have to run heat after heat after heat of 50 meters. For some of the longer events like the 1,000, the mile, the 2 mile, they're not limited by the number of lanes, and so they combine varsity and sub-varsity athletes. They put them all together and run one heat. In all of that, the middle school participants can't score. They don't factor into the outcome of the race. They participate. Because the meets, the time frame is so tight. This year, Hopkinton High School offered to have some sub-varsity meets at their high school facility, and I think that's where the question comes about the policy, and I think Coach Mark can probably speak more to that. But just so everyone's aware, we're not violating any MIA rules. We're not violating any TVL rules. Everything we're doing is done with the approval of the MIA and the TVL. In other sports, when we have waivers for sub-varsity, those kids are part of the sub-varsity team. They score. Their performance counts towards the outcome. So if we have a JV game, with a basketball game with an 8th grader in it, the 8th grader gets a basket, that counts towards the final outcome. Winter track is different. Their performance does not count towards the final outcome. And so we don't need any varsity waivers or anything like that, because they're technically they're non-participants, even though they're running in the race. So, winter track is very unique. Spring track is not like this at all. They have their own separate teams, separate meets, separate days. It's only because of the way events run at Reggie Lewis that, we've done this. We've done this for a number of years. And again, I just want to make sure people watching understand we're not in any violation of MIA rules or TVL rules. And I think Coach Marr and Mr. Finney and Coach Fitz can provide more information.
So very well done, Bob. And not to reiterate all of that stuff, and I'll let Coach Marr and Fitz speak specifically more to what we've done in the past as far as these meets. As we schedule these, or I schedule them, they are meets, they are varsity, and that's all we have. And that's all we have had. Obviously this year with these sub-varsity meets, I consider them more, they're exhibitions. They're not scoring. There's no timing system. There's no scoring system. They're just given an opportunity in some respects to run and to have some fun. And that's really what it comes down to. As far as these waivers, and specifically to indoor track, being so small, we get middle level waivers, and the league approves them at the start of the year. There's a document, all our sports are, because we need them. And that hasn't changed for years. And I mean, Bob probably knows even further that back, maybe when he was still principal. But when it comes to competing within the league, we have those waivers there. And in a lot of cases, going to the MIA, which is usually just our district, if we need to, that's a lot of times when we're doing a lot of non-league competitions. But when it comes to sub-varsity, yes, certain sports, they score and stuff, but in the end, you know, we don't have any JV tournaments. We don't have any JV championships. We don't have any sub-varsity, none of that. And of course, when we're doing varsity, we have to follow through and do that, which we have with cross country in the fall. And then with girls basketball, unfortunately, the participation, and it's becoming a battle more and more every season to have enough individuals participating. And I worry stuff like this in this discussion here affecting that as we go forward and starting to have individuals maybe look elsewhere. And we want to keep everyone here, but in a lot of cases, this can, you know, eventually affect them enough where is there better opportunities? Do they want to sit here and have to deal with stuff like this and have stuff questioned? And it becomes a challenge, and I'm afraid that we're going to lose a lot of participants. And even this spring, I'm really afraid if anything is done with this winter, that a lot of those middle schoolers might just look elsewhere. Hopefully they pick another sport, but they don't want to. And our coaches have really built an unbelievable program every season. The numbers keep going. It's the one sport where numbers keep growing and growing and growing. So I think this would be a huge detriment. But Coach Meyer and Coach Fitz can speak more to what is going on with the tournaments, what we've done in the past, and really what it looks like. I think when it comes to these individuals that don't score and these middle school students that participate in indoor track, I don't think anybody would know what they score, what they do, or anything unless you're in attendance. It's not posted anywhere. It's not recorded or anything like that. So I'll let them speak a little bit more to it. They can give some more clarity to that, but I appreciate the time to just have a few words, and I'll let them continue.
Thanks. Coach Mar, do you want to say something?
Yvonne's had her hand up. I don't know if she wants to go first.
Oh, do you want to go first, Yvonne? I don't know if she's frozen, maybe.
It looks like she's frozen.
I don't know if you can hear us, Yvonne, but it looks like you're frozen. We can't hear you. Do you want to go, Allison, and then we can circle back to her when she...
Yes, I'm good.
Okay.
So I fully appreciate the importance of following policy. And I think if what we're here to do is ensure the best and most appropriate competition and experience for our athletes while maintaining that we are following those guidelines, I think this should be an easy decision. Everything Bob said, everything that Derek said, and everyone else, you know, I've pored over policy just as I know all of you have in terms of what's in question and are we crossing lines? And I do think it comes down to these meets, these JV meets that were proposed, that was brought on just this season. You know, every year for decades, as far as I've been informed, we've done this where we bring our middle school athletes to the meets, right? We are not a varsity team. We have one team, and varsity status on our team is something that you earn by scoring. Like, scoring is a major part of how you become considered varsity. So kind of by definition and default, if an athlete is not scoring, they are sub-varsity. So we have sub-varsity athletes that are seniors, that are freshmen, that are middle schoolers, right? They all compete at the same meet and they are sub-varsity. So I feel like that satisfies that. When we talk about the policy in the handbook that says middle schoolers must participate at the lowest possible level, that is subvarsity. Like, we don't have a separate team, as we just said. So these meets, again, I wouldn't consider them a meet. We're not aligned going against a team. There are no scores. They're not officially timed. Not even every event is offered. I mean, kids come into the program, and a lot of them kind of have a direction of where they're going, as far as what event they're suited for. Sometimes we guide them. Sometimes we switch them up. We try different things. So everyone is training for a particular event. And again, not even every one of those events was offered at these exhibition, races. And I want to specifically, we loved the opportunity to send our subvarsity athletes to Hopkinton because they weren't getting any opportunity to race at Reggie Lewis. So this, as an overflow option, because they had no opportunity, that's the next best option. So great, it's there. The crowd's not the same as Bob referred to. This is, Reggie's, it's insane. It's an experience. It's like, even if they don't run, I think the kids enjoy it. And that's something that they can be excited about, being able to have an impact when they get to high school. So they see it as middle schoolers, then they can have that impact when they get older, which is great. And that's something we shouldn't take away from our kids. In terms of the events that have, some events have designated varsity versus subvarsity heats. So that one's easy. We can always keep our subvarsity athletes in the subvarsity heats. Certain events do not offer that because there are not as many kids and they don't need the restriction of lanes. So the 600 and above in terms of distance do not have designated subvarsity heats. So we allow our kids to run because they're there legally. As you know, our JV waivers, our subvarsity waivers through the TVL, they're allowed to be there. So we allow them to run because they deserve that, as they always have. And if we do have athletes who technically are placed in such a position that they would score against our opposing team, we make it they don't score. I've communicated with every coach ahead of every meet to just let them know that, and they know this is how Millis works, but I just make it clear that that they will be running, we will not be scoring them, and we make all those adjustments necessary so that their scores are not factored into the final result. And the last point, maybe the last point, but running at Hopkinton is not the best and most appropriate level of competition for some of our athletes. For example, in the mile, the athletes that ran at Hopkinton were there because their coaches decided that they weren't really ready. Now at Reggie, a team can literally put there's unlimited, in our bylaws, there's unlimited athletes that can run the mile race. So there's no reason that every team could put every kid in that race. But I think out of respect for the fact that we are limited, we only have 3 hours to complete a meet. If you have a girl or a boy or, that runs a 10-minute mile, that's not really appropriate, especially when we do have this other option. So for them, it makes sense. If we had an athlete who was running significantly faster than that, it's not appropriate competition or developmental, appropriate for where they're at. And our job is to develop athletes, put them in the best possible situation to succeed and challenge themselves and improve. And so it doesn't make sense. Both are considered subvarsity. We are not crossing lines, as I think it was Mr. Carter said, and I hadn't really looked at it that way, but let's, if the ambiguity of a policy can favor our kids to allow participation, allow progress, like, we should definitely do that. So we're definitely not violating policy, and we shouldn't warp it to fit that, to make it that way. I think everything we're doing, Derek's been super on top of policy, making sure, above board, everything we do. We're not trying to sneak things in or cut corners. We're being very by the book, to be honest with you. So this would be a really detrimental decision to not allow appropriate athletes to compete at Reggie. If we take them all, like today, we have a meet, it's vacation week. Numbers are going to be a lot lower across the 12 teams of the TVL. This is a meet where they likely will have the JV 55. They will have the JV 300. These kids will finally get to participate with the big kids like they've always wanted, like teams have always done in the past. And it would be really unfortunate to not allow them that appropriate opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Did Yvonne make it back?
I did. Sorry, I was on my
No,
phone. And I
you're
have
good. You're good.
These restrictions, I guess. I don't know how much Allison went into the JV meets, and I'm only speaking more for the JV meets because Allison works on Saturdays, so I'm the one that takes the kids. And as Derek Finney said, it is not a real meet. It is a bunch of coaches who get together and hand time these kids. It's kids that don't get to see any track time at Reggie Lewis. It's not a real competition. It's kids that are nervous to throw in front of a whole bunch of high school kids. It's kids who are nervous to try the 300 at Reggie because it can be intimidating, but Hopkinton is a little bit easier to ease into. And we have a lot of 300 meter runners now that will, if there's a JV meet, will run. I'm sorry, if there's an extra heat for the JV runners to run, they will run because they got their fears over at Hopkinton. Now, we're at Hopkinton out of the goodness of Jean, their coach's heart. She went to her school committee, asked if we could have the space. We don't pay for it. If somebody comes to Hopkinton and says, hey, can we use your gym for a cheerleading competition or wrestling match, we're booted because they're going to get revenue from that. If Metro West decides that they want to run extra practices, we're out of there. So this is the first time we've had that many sub-varsity meets at Hopkinton. Last year we had one. And the year before that, we had none. So to include those as part of competition, I think is unfair because, again, it's done out of the goodness of Hopkinton's heart. And we can get kicked out of there at any point in time without, like, they can tell us the night before, by the way, they're using the gym, so we can't have it. So taking that into account as a sub-varsity meet, I think is unfair because we don't know if we're ever going to get that place. It's just so happens we got it 3 times this year. And like Allison said, to have these competitive middle school runners run at Hopkinton is kind of ridiculous. They're running 12 laps on hand times from coaches, and it's just not fair to them because they're at a different level. We're fortunate that we have kids that for the first time in 8th grade are at this level, and it's rare. So to have all this hoopla to happen it's just kind of silly, just to have kids run a mile where it doesn't make a difference if they run at Reggie.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Mullany, you're good. Does anyone else want to speak on the board here? I don't know if Anna or Patrick wanted to weigh in or anything while you're here, or you guys are good. I can't see you, so
I just wanted to say thank you for everybody to come out, and I feel like anything I would share would be redundant, so I'll hold off. But I do think that, you know, the point that this is what makes Millis really unique is these special opportunities for our students to kind of function as a small school, big family. In these supervised and adult supported environments is really important. And I just, you know, it's beautiful to see 86 people turn out on a morning like this to support our kids and their access to things. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Can I just say, if anyone else on the school committee has questions about anything that you're going to deliberate over that you feel like would bring more clarity that we haven't already addressed, please do. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and I just wanted to take time to, I mean, essentially the meeting is about policy and based off of the MIA and the TVL, it seems like we're following the policy, and this has been a great opportunity, you know, for our students. So hopefully we can continue to, you know, with the current policy, and if there's ambiguity and we need clarity around that, you know, if we can move forward with this, and then we can, you know, look at if we need to rewrite things to bring clarity to it, so that we're all in understanding of what we're actually doing. You know, we're happy to kind of look at that following this as well.
Great. All right, does anyone on the school committee have any questions that they want clarified from Mr. Finney or the coaches that they are uncertain about before we?
Can I, Madam Chair?
Yeah, Ms. Gibbons.
So there are maybe 2 questions, or maybe they're clarifications. Based on the comments that have been made so far, is it a true statement that if middle schoolers are running in a varsity event, that their times are not posted anywhere on any website, MIAA or otherwise?
That is not true. If they run at a varsity meet, their times are posted.
Okay. The second question is, have middle school athletes participated in a varsity event when a JV event for a JV heat rather was available for that middle school athlete? Exact same event.
No. We have never put a sub-varsity athlete into a varsity heat if there was an alternative available. I mean, not this year. I don't remember, not that I've ever done.
My question is, do you mean at Reggie Lewis and taking away Hopkinton? So like at Reggie Lewis, we have 4 varsity 55-meter runners. And then if they have a JV heat, we put the kids that are JV runners in that. But I've never, for my personal, because I'm the 55-meter, I've never put a middle schooler in a varsity 55-meter heat in case there is a JV heat after. Does that answer your question?
Okay, yeah, and I'll be honest, I don't know all of the specifics about how all of this works. I'm just trying to ask some general questions about how the participation of middle school athletes I'll stick to questions right now because I think we are going to have an opportunity for school committee member comments. So I'll wait on that.
Okay.
My questions are simply around, are middle school athletes participating in varsity events? And my definition of participating is, are they running? I think participation, Mr. Mulaney said they are participating. Whether they're getting scored or not, it's still a participation. I have a lot of other comments that I'll make in a couple of seconds, but are middle school athletes running in varsity events or running, throwing, whatever the action is? I want to get away from the word participate, because by virtue of being in that race or shot put event or javelin or high jump, by virtue of being in it, in my opinion, you are participating, whether you are scored or not.
So when it's allowed, for example, the mile, you can put anybody in the mile. It's not a varsity, sub-varsity, it's one race and you have unlimited entries. That's where they're competing. But like if it's specifically a varsity activity, running or throwing or jumping, no, middle schoolers are not in that.
Okay, thank you.
We have had seasons where our sub-varsity middle school athletes were faster than our high school athletes, and we kept them back. So they would still get their time. It would be posted. If you look at the order of who placed in what order, they would ultimately be above, but for scoring purposes, they never factored in.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, Ms. Canistari.
Can I just ask a clarification question?
Yeah.
I think, Allison, when you were speaking earlier, you were saying how you define an athlete as sub-varsity versus varsity. Can I have a better understanding as how you were defining that? Was it based on, because you were saying how you have even some high school athletes who may not be performing at a varsity level. So are you defining athletes, meaning middle school athletes, if they are performing at a varsity level, are you considering them varsity athletes? Like, I'm trying to just understand the definition compared to what we see as sub-varsity versus varsity.
All right. So I guess when we talk about varsity on our team, right, most sports you try out and you're placed on a team, varsity, sub-varsity, middle school, whatever. We don't have that. When kids come onto the team, we have no idea how they're going to perform, who is going to be our top runners, who's going to earn varsity status. So like we issue varsity letters and we have criteria for that. The criteria to be considered varsity on the Millis track team. So I guess we grant varsity status to all juniors and seniors if they have good attendance, attitude, effort, if they uphold what we expect. They automatically are considered varsity. They earn their varsity letter. It doesn't mean that they are necessarily running at a varsity level at these meets, but they do earn their varsity letter. Underclassmen, meaning freshmen and sophomores, the only way for them to be considered varsity is we have some criteria, but they have to score a certain number of points at meets. And they need to be one of our top 3 athletes in that event, over a course of all the meets. So, I mean, that's something Yvonne and I came up with to, recognize good effort and performance. And, some schools are very strict and you only get a varsity letter if you earn varsity points at a meet. So in terms of, for our team, varsity are those athletes that have met those criteria, and middle school never would fall as a varsity athlete because they cannot score points, even if they are our best athlete.
Okay, and then my second question is, how does it look? I think someone said that a middle school athlete's score can appear on some websites. When I'm looking at a website, if I have a middle schooler, I guess part one of that question is, if there is a meet at Reggie and a middle schooler participates in a sub-varsity, so a JV heat, do their numbers appear on a website?
Sure, yes.
Okay, so under
Because
JV.
it's all automatically timed. It's all computerized.
Yep.
So everything gets posted. It's called athletic.net.
Okay. And so then if there is a heat where there is that ambiguity of a mixture of JV and varsity runners, does a middle schooler's time appear on a JV heat, like as a JV or as a varsity?
They're all listed together.
They're all listed together.
So if you go to the website and you look up races or throwing events, it'll say their name and then their grade. So for example, my son who throws shot put, he's a freshman, he's our top thrower. So he's above seniors. So, regardless of what grade they are, if it's automatically timed, if it's electronically timed or registered, they're going to show up. And that's for across the board for every single school that does indoor track.
So a middle schooler could say, if they did shot put and they scored the best, they would be placed.
It would be on there, yes.
I mean, yes,
they're trying to understand how.
If they're not scoring, it would just show their distance or their speed or their
result.
Okay,
because it's not scoring.
I think from back in the day when there wasn't the electronic websites and you were just kind of told your time. So I'm trying to understand, because I have younger kids, how it works as now in with the electronic age of scores being posted and times being posted. So that helped clarify. Thank you.
I'd like to add that having results, whether it's shot put, long jump, throwing, running, having them electronically timed and put out there and on a website is actually it's a wonderful thing, because it allows our athletes, even at the middle school level, to use those results to qualify. And because it's digital, like outside of MIAA and state and sanctioned stuff, there are youth meets, there are national meets, and in order to get to those, they need to have an officially timed event. And so for us to actually be able to provide that is a wonderful service to these kids. It is giving them personal goals they are striving for. So, they can probably, some of them, we had middle school athletes last spring go to nationals because they were able to get officially timed at some meets, and our middle school athletes can get officially timed here. And so that is a huge reason and a benefit that, again, as long as we are not breaking policy, which I really don't think we are, that would be, it's a service that we can give them that helps them strive for greatness and get them where they want to go in their own personal goals.
Mr. Parrish, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. Derek, Mr. Finney, these are probably best for you to help me clarify. So I've been thinking about the MIA policies for middle level participation. So I'm just trying to understand how to clearly see everything. So I understand that we are small compared to our other surrounding schools. And so the TVL gives us waivers for all sports, basically kind of like just every year, yes, approved across the board. So when I look at the last couple of years of waivers that the MIA has listed on their waiver form, on their waiver list each year of all approved waivers, it seems to be really varied one year to the next. There's only 2 years that I found when I was looking. Last year we had 15 waivers for 15 different sports. All but a couple were varsity. There were only a couple of varsity, and those were clearly sports we didn't have JV teams for. So the waivers are there and make sense. Indoor track not there for either one, based on how, and I understand the logic there. So this year we have 3. Last year we had 15. So help me understand where that difference comes from, and why, and I'll just say this and then I'll let you speak. Sorry, adding one more, there seems to be zero ambiguity with the MIA policy. All middle level students must, capital letters on their policy, which is the PDF that I know has been around. It says without question, everybody needs a waiver. We get it automatically. They don't all show up. So help me understand where that difference is.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of those from last year, were probably from the spring, which would not have been done yet. And I haven't even processed those aren't due till March. So that would be 6 or 7 there with the, so I don't go, the TVL does all their waivers for us, obviously at the beginning of the year. The MIA does not. I can't send in the 6 or 7 where we have more sports. Obviously indoor track's not there because I haven't had to do it, because it falls under that umbrella outside, and plus we're playing within the league, and with those league waivers, then that cuts, but I haven't had to do it for indoor track. So you would probably never see that. I don't know how far I can go back, because they've all ran, and that's just been it. This year, obviously we have those 3 sub-varsity meets that they decided to do actually after the season had started. With the fall, depending on non-league opponents and stuff, that would be the reason a lot of times to have the MIA listed there. But this year, the fall, I did it we go through the district. And so our district is District 7. And he has the right to approve them, which is another school AD, which he did that. The reason whether he posts them or not, I have no idea. I'd have to ask him. But I did that. I mean, we had middle school entries for both soccer, boys soccer. Obviously, we didn't have a varsity entry, unfortunately. So that's where the difference would become as far as the spring. Usually I do the spring all the time. Obviously, track won't come into play because we have a middle school. We have middle school meets. They qualify for state meets under the middle school if it's MIA. Obviously, some of the stuff that they personally do that Coach Marr mentioned doesn't fall under MIA, so they might score, but it doesn't count towards that. So that's where some of the differences, as far as not all listed, have come up. This winter, we haven't needed any as far as, unfortunately, boys, we didn't have a freshman team. We have a middle school team. All the JV are high school kids. And then the girls varsity, the lowest level is JV, which that waiver, and we're only playing in the league. We have the waiver through the league, so that suffices.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. So just one more. I appreciate
Go
that.
ahead.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
So last year we had a waiver for JV cross country for junior varsity. Did we?
Yeah.
Do we?
Well, we had a,
does
we
that
had
just
a,
mean it's? Yeah.
we had a
sorry.
varsity waiver for Coach Mar. We had a varsity waiver for the boys' side. Correct.
No, it was the girl.
I did girls. Oh, we did both. I think.
We did both. We just didn't have any middle school boys, 8th grade boys.
So the MIA lists junior varsity. It doesn't say a varsity waiver, which is so. I'm just trying to again sort through everything that's there.
The varsity waiver was done for. We did it for girls this year. We did it for both. I'm pretty sure Coach Mara last year. I don't know why they wouldn't. Most of those one have to with the varsity because they have to participate. And then the meets, other cross country meets, we don't have JV meets. It's middle school cross country meets.
Okay.
So we wouldn't have to have a JV waiver for the middle school to run in it, but we did have that varsity one for 8th graders only. It's an 8th grade waiver only for them to run, and that was primarily because we have never had enough kids to score.
Sure.
And we lose every meet. This gave us a chance to score, and including this year with the girls, it gave us a great opportunity to score and even win 2 league meets. So,
right. Do we have middle school players in athletes participating in all sports every year?
In most cases, yeah, I would say yes. I mean, unless we have middle school teams, obviously,
sure,
depending on the sports
yeah.
and depending on the numbers where we can do that. But there could be a chance that we have, whether it's at the freshman level or JV level, sometimes we would need them. And then again, if we need them for varsity, and hopefully that's never the case, but because participation is going down in some sports, we do, they could, depending, and the coaches can decide whether they are ready to do that too. It comes down to a safety thing, obviously, and there's some, reservations there on playing against bigger kids and stuff, and we get that too. But yeah, in most cases, I mean, I'd have to go through and look at the rosters from the past few years to say we had this many middle schoolers participating in a sub-varsity team if we had it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No. Your answer is great. Thank you. Yeah. I think. That's
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make one more comment just to clarify that, at the end of our league, of our season, there's a TVL championship showcase, whatever you want to call it, where we are allowed to enter generally 2 of our top athletes into each event. So the best of the best go on and compete against the best of everybody else. And we would never add a middle school athlete into that, regardless of their status on the team.
Thank you.
And Allison, I believe the past has been that middle school kids could run in a freshman mile.
Yes, again, that's considered, it's not a non-scoring event at the showcase. So generally, yes, we've always done that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just ask one more question? Sorry.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
at the last indoor meet, was there a JV or a freshman mile event that could?
There never is
that was
at a
run?
regular league meet. There's only.
Okay, so I just I just wanted to make sure what you said made me think maybe there was. So
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. If anyone doesn't have any other questions, the committee members have any questions, then we're gonna move into. I'd just like to hear from each of you on the committee as to what your thoughts are and kind of where we are going to be going with this. Ms. Gibbons, do you want to start?
Sure. Thank you, Chairperson Briggs, and thanks everybody for attending today. I do want to reiterate, I think, what has been said multiple times and what Chairperson Briggs started with at the beginning of the meeting. I will say one thing. I did see a hand raise up. We are out of open session time frame, so we are not taking any additional public comments. We had that at the beginning of the meeting. So for anybody that may have joined late, the open session portion of the meeting has concluded. Sorry, Chairperson, I just saw that some folks were asking to make comment. So again, I just want to reiterate what Chairperson Briggs said at the top of the meeting and then subsequently. This meeting is to discuss whether the administration is adhering to the handbook policy. This meeting is not to remove the participation of middle school athletes in sub-varsity sports within the Millis School District. I would like that to be crystal clear. There has been misinformation about what we are here to discuss. So I'd like everyone to understand that it has never been a point of discussion whether the policy allows for middle school athletes to participate in sub-varsity high school sports. It is a long practiced policy that has been in place, I don't know how many years. It predates, I think, my participation on the committee. The school committee's purview, so our roles and responsibilities, are to discuss budget and policy. This is a policy discussion. At any point, at any time, any school committee member can raise a question for any reason related to the budget or to policy. So today we're discussing policy, and we're discussing the administration's direction on adhering to the handbook policy, which, as it reads, middle school athletes can participate up to a sub-varsity level. I think it's unfortunate that we are at this point. There's been a strong support for many, many, many years for middle school athletes participating in high school sports up to the sub-varsity level. There have been requests in the past for athletes to participate at the varsity level that were middle schoolers. Those have not been granted. As a point of consistency, following the letter of the handbook policy, middle school athletes are allowed to participate, and I, as a single member, fully support their participation in high school sports up to the sub-varsity level. So I believe at some point there will be a vote as to whether or not we are directing the administration to adhere to the handbook that says that middle school athletes can continue to participate, as always, never in question, in high school sports, but up through the sub-varsity level. So, said in other terms, my personal opinion is middle school athletes are not able, by the handbook policy, to participate in varsity level athletics. The single, I think, other consideration would be if there's a waiver that is filed. I understand we have that with women's varsity basketball right now. There's a waiver because the team needs it for participation to field the team. I've heard comments about how it's not fair to the athlete for them to be participating at a level that is below their performance level. Right or wrong, that has been the policy for years. Other sports have not had athletes available to participate in the varsity level because of the handbook policy. Athletes have been told no, that they're not allowed to participate on a varsity team because of the handbook policy. So, as a single member, I will be voting in support, as always, of middle school athletes participating in high school sports up through the sub-varsity level.
Thank you. Mr. Powers, would you like to make any comments?
I as a parent of a middle school athlete, just to make that as clear as it can be, this is, I mean, I hope that alone would suggest there's that the lens here is not to eliminate middle school participation in athletics. Just to reiterate what perhaps needs to be said numerous times to ensure that it is heard and understood. And in track specifically, my daughter has specifically participated in middle school athletics. I'm still processing kind of what I believe to be the right. I'm still processing this because I think the existence of a subvarsity level or a not existence of or the non-existence of a subvarsity level seems I still need to determine if we are talking about whether there is a subvarsity level or not, whether that precludes participation. And that's sort of a question that I have for us as we discuss this. In a sport that there's no junior varsity or freshman level, does that mean is our policy allowing them to participate at the varsity level? That's as far as I've got for the moment.
Okay. Ms. Cannistrari, do you want to make a comment, or do you have anything to say?
Sure. I am in line with the things that Denise expressed. I would like further clarification as to what happens to any athlete, middle school or high school, if they go to a meet and their event that they do is not available, whether it's middle school or high school. Is that something I can ask right now?
Sure.
So if there is no JV heat, because they are not considered like a varsity, so I guess it's two parts. If there's no JV heat, there's only a varsity. What happens to the middle schoolers and the non-varsity high school students? And then also my second part is if there's just no heat available for any of the students that they participate in that event, what happens? So if someone could provide some clarification on that.
So can I answer that? Because I have a specific example.
Sure.
I have 3 hurdlers that are high school hurdlers. We're allowed to put in 4. One of my 4th is an 8th grade student who goes in the varsity heat. If you take that away from her, then she can't compete. And at the sub-varsity level, they only do 3 hurdles. They don't do the full race. It's half of a race. So this child who has worked so hard to be as good as she is will no longer be able to race as a hurdler. That's really what happens because there's no JV hurdle race. It's only varsity. And we're just fortunate enough that I don't have that many hurdlers. So she's able to compete. And out of the 4, she's one of my top. And it would break my heart because she's a kid that needed the track team and worked so hard to be there. And to take that away is just devastating. It'll be devastating to her and to us as coaches.
Okay, so I guess so the second part is what if you participate in a meet and the hurdle event is just not there that day? What can those athletes go and participate in something else? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to understand.
That's okay. The hurdle event, the varsity hurdle race will always happen. It's the JV that never does. They just don't have enough time to throw a JV hurdle race together. So she's fortunate enough to squeeze into the varsity heat. And she never scores. Even if she does place, we tell them, nope, those are your points, whoever we compete against. She just likes to participate and be part of the race and be with the high school girls because they have a little bond together. So that would mean if it's voted against, then today she can't go to the meet because there's no other event that she would do. She only does the hurdles. We're not throwing a 55-meter kid into a mile run or vice versa because that's not what they train for. So.
So for myself, when I'm looking at what the handbook says, it's the language of the participation up through subvarsity for me. And that is where I struggle with. I understand how Reggie is, you only have like the 3-hour block. They're trying to squeeze in as many heats as possible and combining sometimes. And sometimes the JV heats are not being able to be done due to timing. But I'm stuck on the fact that our handbook says subvarsity versus what is actually playing out in real time as far as how Reggie is being run. So for me, I don't know if I am comfortable with making exceptions due to a time constraint issue at an event when precedence has been we've said no to athletes in the past participating in varsity level. So that is when I'm looking at the language of the handbook and knowing what we have said in the past about a request for a middle schooler athlete to participate at a varsity level. And we've said no. Only saying yes in this instance because of time constraints by Reggie. So that's.
I think in black and white, I totally understand being also one of the soccer coaches. You can't pull up an 8th grader to varsity just because you can't displace high schoolers. And I think that's what the question is now is like, how are we allowing these 8th graders to run in a varsity heat? Well, because there is no other heat for them. And then secondly, they're not counting for points. They're not benefiting our team as far as, winning a track meet against, say, Bellingham or Dover Sherburne. It's just the fact that they allow this mile run allows any runner to run. And again, if you have a 12-minute mile runner, you can throw them in as a coach. But as coaches, we have the respect of time, so we never would do that. So to be honest, the two that are in question are competitive. In fact, one of them out of 33 runners placed second out of all the runners, but she doesn't score for points. She's not there. She doesn't give us any benefit as a team. So I think it's in black and white. Yeah, I understand the confusion, but track is just a little different because, they're not scoring baskets or scoring goals or playing defender. They're just running. And I think that's where track has always kind of been allowed to do this. And it's rare, like, the mile, and Allison can speak more because she's a distance, but the big picture is that they're running in a varsity heat because there is no JV heat for the mile. It's just the mile run because there's no lane constrictions. Whereas 55 hurdles, 55 meters, there's lane constrictions. 300 meter, there's lane constrictions. These kids all just run into the first lane. Whoever's fastest is fastest. I don't know, Allison, if you want to add.
Can I just jump in real quick also? I just would wonder what the committee's take is on, it's one race, but it's a combined varsity and sub-varsity race. So I don't know if the committee looks at that as a varsity race just because they're one, but it's a combined varsity and sub-varsity heat.
Is it a combined varsity and sub-varsity heat, or is it a varsity only heat?
It's
Well,
one race.
I guess that not every athlete that runs at Reggie or runs the mile specifically is a varsity athlete. Like varsity, I guess that's what's your.
But is there a definition of a varsity heat? Let's remove the athlete from the discussion. The events themselves, are they designated as varsity and JV?
Not
or varsity and other?
Not the mile.
Right. It's just the mile.
Listed as a varsity mile.
There's no varsity mile. It's just the mile run.
So when it's posted on Athletic Net Live, it doesn't say varsity mile.
No.
I don't know. To be honest, I'm not
It
sure.
It just says mile run.
So, Madam Chair.
Ms. Humans.
I do think that we need to move ourselves to hear from all the members of the committee. We do need to move ourselves to a vote on the policy. Again, this is a vote by the committee and a discussion by the committee about whether the administration is adhering to the handbook policy as written. I'm not saying I'm not advocating moving to a vote this minute. I do just want us to keep to the purpose of the meeting and be able to keep driving towards getting to that vote.
So I have one more question about our policy specifically. So our policy contains two statements that I want to determine whether they are if then or whether they coexist and how to interpret it. So in our policy, we have a statement that says middle school students in 7th and 8th grade may also participate in sub-varsity sports depending on the year. That is one statement. And then under the procedures for 7th and 8th grade athletes to participate at the high school level, it says number 2, middle school students are only allowed to play at the lowest available level. So if the lowest available level is varsity, does that qualify them to participate at the varsity level? Or does the first clause say only sub-varsity regardless if there's no lower levels? I think this is right where I am. And just as a point of clarification, the athletic.net does say that it was a girls varsity 1 mile heat. So just to address that, it does say that. But these two clauses are the ones that this is where I'm sitting, which we have two that don't seem to coexist. And so we need to, so whether it's an if then or not, I think that's where that's where I'm trying to work it out.
The last just point and sort of question I want to put out is that if you are considering that at a Reggie Lewis meet that if some of you believe that there's no such thing as sub-varsity there, then that means that the future of the program is very much in question, because these extras are not a guarantee. There isn't a team. If you decide that it's not even a question of, well, they can go to the sub-varsity at Hopkinton, but not Reggie, then if Hopkinton goes away, then you are essentially saying that middle school sports is done with. Or that you can only run if a 55 JV heat.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Gibbons.
Can I ask that we now allow the school committee members to have our deliberation and that we've taken all of the information unless we have direct questions from other attendees? I think we have a lot of information that we need to deliberate on and drive to a conclusion.
Yep.
I think if we have questions, we can go that route. I'll make one last comment and then I'll let other committee members speak.
Yep.
Our issue today is around whether the administration is adhering to the policy in the handbook. No one has brought to us any amendments to the handbook policy. If somebody would like to bring an amendment to the handbook policy at a future meeting and not today, that can be considered at a future time. This is an issue that was raised in the fall. To say that this is an issue that is just coming up this week or this day or whatnot is incorrect information. There has been ambiguity about this policy, and now it has come to a point where the school committee has to get involved to determine, or actually to ensure that the policy is being adhered to. And now we are in a position where we have to determine, it is not for us to decide Reggie Lewis, Hopkinton, that in my opinion, it is not for us to decide Reggie Lewis, Hopkinton, who goes what and where. It is to decide, is the policy being followed? Subvarsity is what is outlined in the policy. Sean, exactly to your point, my read of the policy may be different than your read of the policy, which speaks to there being an issue with the policy that needs to be clarified. But no one has taken it upon themselves as the administration to look to clarify that policy so that we don't find ourselves in this position. So my read of the policy is that middle school athletes are able to participate in high school sports up through the sub-varsity level. If sub-varsity does not exist, then that middle school athlete does not have an option to participate in middle school sports for whatever that is. And because I understand that we live in a world of sound bites, I am 100% in favor of middle school athletes participating in high school sports. That is not what is at issue here. I don't want anything being taken out of context. I fully support middle school athletes participating in high school sports. The way that our handbook is currently written, which is not written by the school committee, it is written by the administration and read and approved by the school committee. So the way that it is currently written is that middle school athletes are able to participate in sports up through the sub-varsity level. From a policy perspective, to ensure that we are consistent across all sports offered by the district, I feel like we need to adhere to what is in the policy, which is middle school athletes absolutely participating, yes, in high school sports up through the sub-varsity level.
Thank you. Ms. Canistari or Mr. Powers, do you have anything that you want to add before we move to a vote?
No.
No.
All right. I would like to say that.
Actually, yes, Robin. Sorry. Sorry. I am a parent of 2 young athletes, and I am also someone who has a background in policy and procedure. And I am looking at the language of the handbook, and I need to vote about the language of the handbook. I am disappointed that there has been no proposed amendment put before the committee, because that isn't the committee. Our role is to then be able to review that language. I am all for middle school athletes participating in high school sports. Excuse me, I just need to address some small people for a second to lower their voice. I am all for middle school athletes participating in high school sports. I think it is great for our program and for our students. So I want to be able to vote in support of language that is supportive of our athletes, but that has not been put before me. So I need to vote on what the handbook language currently says. So I just wanted to put that out there. I am all for middle school athletes.
Thank you. All right. Again, I would like to say that, again, the middle school handbook clearly stipulates that middle school athletes are required to compete at the sub-varsity level. When athletes participate in these varsity heats, they're considered to be competing in varsity events, regardless of whether or not they're contributing to scoring. Athletic Net Live records all these race results, and as a result, the athletes who participate in varsity heats are listed on official websites as having competed at the varsity level. It's important to note that if sub-varsity or junior varsity options of a particular distance or throwing event or jumping event is not available, it's my opinion that middle school athletes are not permitted to compete in these varsity heats, even if they express a desire to participate in those events. If a particular race or throwing event is not offered at the sub-varsity level, then middle school students should not be permitted to compete in these varsity events. All right, to the committee, I'll take a motion.
Oh, sorry, Madam Chair.
Ms. Gibbons.
I make a motion to direct the school administration to adhere to the middle school handbook policy as written, permitting middle school students to participate in high school athletics up through the sub-varsity level.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Are we deliberating without additional input from outside the committee, or are we?
We've already had all of the input from that. Right. Was our whole the whole hour and a half leading up to this.
Correct. So now we are voting.
Mm-hmm.
That is the place we are.
Mm-hmm.
We can also have additional discussion if we would like after the motion.
Yeah, do you have any other questions or?
No, I don't.
Okay. So seeing no further discussion, I'm going to put it to a vote. All those in favor of adhering to the policy and having middle school students participate at the sub-varsity level only. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions?
I think I'm so can I ask a question here?
Sure.
So the vote being made would include the statement that the two clauses that I mentioned are if then rather than coexisting in the policy. Is that correct? Because we have one that says lowest available level and we have one that says sub-varsity.
Yes.
So we're saying that the sub-varsity comes first and the other one comes second.
Yep.
Correct. Okay. So my vote is no.
Okay. So the motion passes with three votes to yes and 1 to no. So the administration and the track coaches need to make sure that middle school athletes are participating in only the available JV heats and meets.
I understand that, but if there's no JV heat available for the mile, what do we do with our 3 8th grade milers? So now they can't run today because there's no JV mile offered to them.
Correct.
So they cannot participate in today's meet. So we're blocking probably 5 middle schoolers from competing in a meet that they practice for all week long because there's no sub-varsity available to them.
Correct. They can compete in other JV events.
But with track, they train for certain events. You don't just throw a kid in to an event because it's available. My milers can't run a 55, and my 55 hurdler can't run a mile.
Okay, that concludes our school committee meeting today. Our next meeting is on January 7th at 7:30.
And just for clarification, so today's meets and moving forward at Reggie Lewis Center, the directive we're receiving as an administration is middle school students can only run in separate sub-varsity heats. They're not eligible to run in single heats that combine varsity and sub-varsity.
Correct.
Okay. And just, I'd also like to point out that, there were some comments about the administration not coming forward with a policy. I'd like to point out that the JV meets at Hopkinton were late additions, and, so we did not foresee that. So I just want to make that point clear as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're gonna end our meeting. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, so roll call vote?
Nope.
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming out today, and we will see you again on the 7th of January.